Story Nu Hoang Ran Bien Egle. The story of Egle, the sea serpent queen. Once upon a time, there was a farmer family with 12 sons and 3 daughters, among whom was the youngest daughter Egle, who was incredibly beautiful. They lived very peacefully, until one day. That day, the girls invited each other to the lake to bathe. After swimming to their heart's content, they went ashore together. The 2 older sisters quickly put on their clothes to go home, but on top of the younger sister's pile of clothes was a huge bag. She couldn't get dressed to go home. The snake did not bar its fangs or spit poison, but its eyes alone were enough to scare Egle. She quickly called her 2 sisters to help, but what could all 3 daughters do to a python? Then, Egle knelt down and begged the snake to give her her clothes so she could go home. At this point, a strange thing happened. The snake opened its mouth and said, "As long as you promise to marry me, I will immediately leave." At this time, it was unclear whether it was because of confusion, but Egle immediately promised that to the snake. The python immediately slithered into the water and disappeared. When the girls' whole family heard about it, they were worried. They prayed that the snake would not come. But on the 3rd day, they saw something that no one had ever thought of in their lives. There was a magnificent horse-drawn carriage stopping in front of their house, and the driver, believe it or not, was. The 2 snakes took out the offerings, then asked to take the bride home. But Egle's family did not want to lose their daughter. They took a duck, dressed it in human clothes, and gave it to the 2 snakes. A few or 2 snakes immediately fell for the trick, put the duck on the carriage and left. But before the carriage left the village, from the air, a chrysanthemum saw everything. It immediately went down to tell the 2 snakes that they had been tricked. And the carriage returned to Egle's house. But the girls' family did not give up. They continued to take a goat, then a cow to replace their daughter's life. But all were stripped by the chrysanthemum. Finally, Egle decided to keep his promise. She got into the carriage, and the carriage kept running, all the way to the beach. And when she got out of the car, she was surprised, because waiting for her was not the python from before, but a handsome young man in regal clothes. The young man called himself Zilvenas, king of the sea serpents. Having said that, he took Egle to the bottom of the sea and entered the palace, and she became his queen. Many years passed, the couple lived in happiness. Egle gave birth to 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. One day, the 3 children asked their mother about their maternal family. Egle's lingering homesickness flared up in Egle. She then asked Zilvenas to take her child back to visit her parents. Having a feeling that this would end badly, Zilvenas tried his best to stop it. He then gave Egle a cocoon, then told her to pull all the threads out of the cocoon and she would be able to return home. She pulled and pulled but could not finish the cocoon. She secretly asked for help from an old witch who lived by the sea. She told her to throw the cocoon into a cauldron of boiling water, and immediately all the silk strands separated, revealing that inside there was still a silkworm continuously releasing more silk. Zilvenas told his wife to try to take off a pair of shoes that were locked tightly with a chain. According to the witch, she secretly brought it to the smithy and the blacksmith helped her melt the chain to take off the shoe. Zilvenas continued to ask his wife to bake a cake but was not allowed to use kitchen utensils. The witch told her to dip the sieve in water and knead the dough inside it, then wrap it with leaves and place it in the fire. Finally, knowing he couldn't continue to stop him, Zilvinas let his wife take their children ashore. Egle took his children to visit his family, and was very warmly welcomed. The whole family didn't want to leave Egle anymore, and they had a plan. Taking advantage of the time Egle was not at home, her brother immediately captured the 3 children and forced them to call Zilvinas ashore. The 2 eldest sons absolutely refused, but the youngest sister could not bear it. He agreed to go to the beach and call his father to come ashore. Hearing his daughter's call, Zilvinas quickly went ashore. Who would have thought that as soon as he set foot on the beach, 12 of Egle's brothers were waiting. They covered him with a net to prevent Zilvinas from returning, and then, the blades were swung. When Egle returned home, she couldn't find her child, so she quickly ran to the beach. Seeing her children sitting and crying on the sandbank, she knew something was wrong. Egle loudly called out to Zilvinas, but in response there were only drops of red blood on the sea surface. In extreme pain, Egle and her mother cried until they ran out of tears, and they turned into trees growing on the beach. Thank you for joining us for today's fairy tale. We hope these stories bring joy and meaning to your day. If you love our channel, please hit the subscribe button so you won't miss any exciting tales. Wishing you a good night and sweet dreams. See you in the next story.